What's up, everybody? On today's video, will Florida finally ban the sport of golf? Not only that, but how many centuries will it take for Florida to recover from the damage that this sport has done to the state? That has not only scarred the landscape, but also destroyed the ecology of the natural fauna. Before we can understand the damage that golf has done to Florida, we must go to its roots in Scotland, where the sport just about cost the English to lose their homeland in Europe on two occasions. While the German engineers were busy making airplanes and other advancements in technology, the only thing the English could focus on was hitting these rubber balls with sticks. Before these rubber balls were made out of rubber, it was even more time costly and time consuming, as they were built from feathers and leather, and it took a man an entire day to make just two of these golf balls. Unfortunately for the Europeans, by the 1900s, this sport had become mainstream, affordable to the normal person with inventions like rubber. However, while the English were busy casting copper and iron to make golf equipment, the Germans had other plans. The English and the Scottish were aware of the detriment that this sport was to human race, and it was banned for a long time in Scotland. A sport that was turning their smartest, wealthiest men into completely useless piles of crap who spent their entire days on fields hitting balls with sticks. Keep in mind that while the English and the Scottish were hitting balls with sticks on fields in the middle of nowhere, the Spaniards were conquering continents. They were swinging something else at something else. They weren't getting trophies for swinging at things, they were getting entire continents. If you think the implications of golf were detrimental to the human race back then, shaping the history of the modern world, the effects that this golf is having on Florida now are worse than anything the sport has done to the human race in the past. See, continual technological improvements means that now, not only are the golf clubs been engineered, their fields are engineered, but also the chemicals that they use to annihilate the landscape to prepare for their sport is worse now than ever. And it seems that the more technological advancements we have, the worse, the more detrimental and harmful the sport of golf becomes to the human race. Today, to keep these golf courses efficiently running the way they're kept, tons, not pounds, tons of harmful fertilizer, chemical, and insecticides are injected into the land. No doubt, we know that golf is the leading cause of red tide in Florida. The amount of chemicals that are infused into these golf courses means that the land in which they're kept could perhaps be unusable for agriculture or any other type of sensitive use for centuries to come. In other words, if a place is used as a landfill and it's used as a golf course, you're better off eating fruits that were planted over an existing landfill than you are over a golf course. In fact, the chemicals that are used on golf courses are not allowed in landfills. If you were to take the fertilizers that are put onto golf courses to a landfill, the landfill would tell you, we cannot have this chemical here because it's too harmful. However, despite the fact that these golf courses are not only scarring the land, they're also contaminating it for indefinite amounts of times. I tried to get a scientist from the University of Tampa to tell me how long the ground would be saturated with these chemicals after a golf course was on them. And the answer that I got was, sir, even after several centuries, the ground will not be able to recover because the heavy contaminants that are used on golf courses stick around for longer than that. In other words, once a piece of land is devoted to a golf course and these heavy metal chemicals are injected into the ground, there's no telling how long it will take before this land can be used for agricultural purposes or any other type of use that is environmentally sensitive. Despite the common knowledge that we have today on how detrimental these golf courses are to the environment, it doesn't seem like people today are concerned with what they're doing to the landscape by installing these land consuming fields of contamination for the simple enjoyment of the very few elite who can afford the time and money it takes to do this crap. The dictator of Uganda decimated 15,000 elephants just for his own personal enjoyment of hunting. The same thing is happening in Florida, where our beautiful landscape is being destroyed by these golf courses for the enjoyment of a few elite people who feel they have the right to contaminate the earth for centuries just so they can enjoy hitting a ball with a stick. One of the sport's greatest legends, Bobby Jones, retired from the sport at age 28, leading the path for other people to consider early retirement to spend their lifetime hitting a ball with a stick. And as meaningless as that sounds, that is the narrative that this sport has spread to the human race. The notion that instead of being on the right, where we see working people in vehicles and on their way to having a life and helping society, we see the ones that are on the left here, driving around a golf course all day, hitting balls with a stick. They could have been on the right, going to work, equipment, running a business, helping society. However, the people that we see here in this golf lane, their entire lives will revolve around the notion of hitting a ball with a stick into a hole, providing nothing for society other than massive amounts of contamination that will last for centuries. And this contamination doesn't just destroy the golf courses, it also destroys the places where these fertilizers and insecticides are being produced. The indirect damage that these golf courses are causing, not only here in Florida, but throughout the entire world and all the places where fertilizers and insecticides are produced, is mind-boggling. And it is equivalent to 5 times the amount of smog and pollution that the city of Mexico City has produced in its lifetimes. Now, while these evaluations have not been evaluated by a mental professional, it is just my personal opinion at the time. You get the idea. These golf courses are horrible. The land could have much better been used for parks or for walking trails, or just left in its natural state. How many centuries will it take for these golf courses to be decontaminated is unsure. But what is sure is that the next generation has no interest in playing golf. They're aware of the contamination, and they would much rather spend their time traveling the world or starting businesses, not hitting balls with a stick all day long. We can assume that millennials have absolutely no intention in taking up the sport of golf. Our parents and grandparents had millions of dollars. They could have very well spoiled us. Instead, they wanted us to get jobs and go to colleges. We could have been on the golf course, but now we have lives, ambitions, goals. We want to travel the world. We want to have our own families and our own lives. Sure, we could have been spoiled, but you didn't want to spoil us. So now we're not going to play golf. All the money that generation spent playing golf could have very well bought me a home. Now, our generation can't afford a house because our grandparents spent all that money playing golf. That was my inheritance. A recent survey of millennials found that when they're able to afford enough money to buy land, they plan to buy golf courses so they can turn them into places to walk their poodles. Others have said they just want to see the things burnt down to the ground and start again. A few have suggested they would rather turn golf courses into places where they can grow vegetables as the population of vegetarians is growing. However, we know that the contamination on these golf courses, that is only a dream. Regardless, millennials have no purpose to golf courses, and these communities that have devoted huge swamps of land to be turned into golf courses are not going to be the way that the millennials are going to want to utilize this land in the future. Matter of fact, millennials will not even be able to utilize this land because it's contaminated. Large portions of the landscape have been taken up in Florida for the sole purpose of golf courses, and now millennials are needing to live in these places because this is where their work is, and they're not able to afford housing because most of the land has been utilized for golf courses. In the next 10 to 15 years, 85% of the golf playing population will be gone because they're kind of old already. And millennials are just waiting for these people to disappear, not only to snatch up their inheritance, but also to try to figure out what they're going to do with these large golf courses. Many have suggested walking parks for their dogs, while many are afraid that the chemicals that were used on these golf courses could harm their poodles. And regardless of how millennials are going to repurpose these golf courses, some rednecks have suggested they'd be a great place to go mudding. Floridians know that the red tide's biggest aggravating factor has been the chemicals that are used on golf courses. And with large portions of coastal communities devoted just for golf courses, we can expect contamination on levels never seen before on the planet. Means that the next generation will be left with the contamination and the hazardous landscape that was created by these people with their stupid sport that led to nothing more than millennials not being able to get their inheritance. It's almost like this generation that plays golf decided to squander their money and to contaminate the earth, to leave behind for us millennials a punishment for wishing their death just so that we could have our inheritance. Will the state of Florida be able to ban golf courses? It's very clear that even if there's no intentions to ban the sport in the state, within the next 10 or 15 years, the amount of people that are going to want to play golf will be reduced by about 85%, and the remaining golf courses will probably turn into slums or trailer parks for snowbirding Canadians. A notion that might convince more millennials to take up the sport just to prevent this from happening. And there it is, guys. That is just some of the problems that Florida has in its future with so much land devoted to golf courses, a sport that in the future will likely not exist. And millennials are going to have to find a way to repurpose this land, a land that cannot even be used for agriculture for centuries to come. Their golf carts are another huge source of contamination, carrying up to 600 pounds of lead batteries. Luckily, these can be reutilized, and it's already taking place as millennials have started to drive golf carts around beaches all over the state. However, most millennials have no idea what we're going to do with the 2 million golf carts that are in the state of Florida. Where do you even begin to store that much lead once these cars are outdated? It's just another perplexing question and another massive source of contamination. I mean, there's not enough time in the day to talk about all of the aspects of contamination that come from the sport, from the golf carts that are used to the chemicals, the insecticides. How much time would we have to devote? We get the idea. I mean, if we understand that the pyramids of Egypt were completely obsolete objects that have not been able to be removed thousands of years later, it's still an eyesore for the Egyptians. These golf courses are going to be the same thing, just on a much larger scale. And us millennials are going to have to figure out a comprehensive plan to repurpose this land. All right, guys, let me hear your thoughts and opinions about what we can do with these golf courses, how they contaminate the planet, And for how many centuries do you think the damages will be around for? This sport is definitely the pinnacle of entitlement and destruction of the world for your own enjoyment. But what are millennials being left with, and how much compensation do we deserve from this generation for having to clean up the mess they're creating?